that the FBI already had the footage, right? They would have seen that there was a woman with the shooter, and yet they chose during this manhunt, during this 33-hour manhunt, not to inform the public that they were also looking for a woman.
A woman was seen with Charlie Kirk's shooter. No names, no confirmation, just a single sentence, and instantly 1,000 questions. Who was this woman? What did the footage show? And why was Candace the only one talking about it? Within minutes of the episode's release, social media went into overdrive. Clips of that single line spread like wildfire, ripped from YouTube, edited for TikTok, and reshared across X and Telegram. Each version added a little more drama, captions like "breaking leak" or "Candace drops the bomb" appeared above flashing red graphics. Commenters flooded the threads demanding proof, while others swore they had seen the video before it was deleted.
It had more. This is what the person told us. She said the shooter is then seen changing his clothes, and he is with a woman, she told me.
By the end of the night, it wasn't just a clip, it was a movement. Hashtags like #CandaceEp246, #TheShooterMystery, and #Hidden Footage began trending. Some users claimed to have inside knowledge about the source of the footage. Others argued that Candace was being silenced by mainstream censors. The narrative was building faster than any newsroom could verify it. Major outlets stayed quiet, unsure how to respond. The supposed footage was nowhere to be found, and the few screenshots circulating were blurry, low quality, and suspiciously cropped. Yet that didn't stop the theories. Online commentators began speculating about who the woman might be: friends, staffers, political acquaintances, each thread twisting the story into new directions. Candace didn't back down. The next morning, she reposted a short clip from her own show with a simple caption, "The truth is never comfortable." That single line reignited the flames. Her followers saw it as confirmation. Her critics called it performance. But either way, it worked. View counts exploded, and her episode became one of the most watched in weeks. What made this moment so powerful wasn't the evidence, it was the absence of it. Viewers weren't reacting to facts, they were reacting to possibility. The mystery gave them something to chase, and the internet thrives on unfinished stories. Soon, YouTube analysts and podcast hosts began to break down the supposed evidence frame by frame. Some froze the footage at key moments, circling silhouettes and shapes that might be a woman's figure. Others overlaid Candace's narration with ominous music, presenting the theory like a digital documentary.
That there was a woman who was helping the shooter, and she's not sure whether or not that person was an accomplice. I would say if you're helping the shooter, you were an accomplice, but somehow we all missed this in this actual clip that Shaner had posted and is since been wiped from the internet. Take a listen.
If you time how long it took him to get from that little part over to here, was way longer than it should have been. So I wondered if the girl had given him stuff, like if there is an accomplice. Sorry, you're filming.
And it said right here, that picture from Sam's across the street, he was right here.
Yep.
Every pause, every word she spoke was interpreted as a clue. Meanwhile, in online communities, the debate deepened. Some argued that Candace was raising a valid question, that maybe authorities hadn't released everything about the case. Others accused her of playing into the conspiratorial tendencies of social media. But no matter which side people were on, one truth was clear: everyone was talking about it. As more creators joined in, the story took on a life of its own. Threads with titles like "Who was the woman?" appeared overnight, pulling together screenshots, timestamps, and verified claims. Amateur digital detectives tried to match clothing styles, lighting angles, even hair color, as if decoding a national secret. Candace herself stayed measured. She didn't confirm or deny, she implied. That subtlety gave her narrative power. People are scared of what this footage really shows. she said in a follow-up live stream. Ask yourself why. That question became the spark for a new wave of commentary. Some influencers framed it as proof that larger powers were hiding information. Others dissected Candace's tone, suggesting she was hinting at something she couldn't say outright. It was no longer about the shooter or the footage, it was about trust, truth, and who gets to define reality online. As the noise grew louder, a few journalists tried to trace where the alleged clip first appeared. What they found only added to the confusion: mismatched upload times, recycled thumbnails, and metadata showing edits made after Candace's episode aired. Whether the original ever existed became impossible to prove, and yet the belief persisted. People didn't need proof, they needed a story that felt true. Candace had given them exactly that. By the end of the week, episode 246 had transformed from a talk show segment into a digital wildfire. It wasn't just a rumor anymore, it had become a cultural moment, a collision of grief, politics, and social media obsession. The woman in the clip remained unidentified, unseen, and perhaps non-existent, but she had already become a symbol of secrecy, of speculation, and of the internet's endless hunger for the next revelation. As one commentator put it in a viral post, whether she's real or not doesn't matter, what matters is that we were never supposed to see her. By the time the weekend arrived, the internet had transformed into a digital crime scene. What had begun as a single comment from Candace Owens was now a sprawling investigation, fueled by millions of clicks, threads, and theories. Everywhere you looked, from Reddit to Telegram, from YouTube breakdowns to TikTok, exposes people were trying to solve the mystery of the woman with the shooter. No one had seen the full footage. In fact, no one could even confirm it existed in any verifiable form. But that didn't stop the search. In online communities, users dissected every angle of every low-quality frame circulating under the tag hash #246 footage. Some claimed they recognized familiar patterns: a hand gesture, a car model, a jacket that looked expensive. Others connected entirely unrelated photos, turning vague similarities into supposed clues. It was digital chaos, but organized chaos, the kind that thrives when facts are few and engagement is everything. YouTube channels sprang up overnight, promising exclusive updates and unseen footage. They replayed Candace's original clip again and again, layering it with eerie soundtracks and bold subtitles like "The woman they don't want you to know about." Creators paused every few seconds to speculate, building tension with every breath. It didn't matter that they had no proof, what mattered was the performance. Candace's name became the algorithm's favorite keyword. Each new upload, no matter how wild the claim, got thousands of views. Her audience, already loyal, became her army, reposting, quoting, defending her against every critic. When mainstream outlets began fact-checking the story, calling it unverified and misleading, it only strengthened her supporters' resolve. Of course they'd say that. One viewer wrote in a viral comment, "They're protecting someone." As the days passed, Candace's silence became strategic. She refused to clarify, refused to retract, and refused to feed the frenzy directly. Instead, she posted subtle messages: "When truth threatens power, power hides. Watch who rushes to discredit, not who asks questions." Those sentences became rallying cries. Her followers treated them like encrypted hints, decoding every word as if she were revealing secrets between the lines. YouTube commentators analyzed her facial expressions, claiming her brief smirk at the end of the broadcast said everything. The speculation wasn't about facts anymore, it was about interpretation. Meanwhile, journalists tried to cut through the noise. Some reached out to law enforcement sources, only to be told that no such footage had been publicly released. Others attempted to contact Candace's production team, who gave no official comment. That silence only added fuel. If there was nothing to hide, people asked, why wasn't anyone addressing it directly? By midweek, online investigators claimed to have located the source of the supposed clip, a private security camera near the site of the original incident. Several users uploaded versions of what they said was the leaked footage, but every upload was slightly different timestamps, different quality, different lighting. The inconsistencies should have discredited the story, but they didn't. In fact, they made it worse. Viewers began arguing that the real version was being suppressed, replaced with doctored fakes to confuse the public. That theory that there was a cover-up took hold quickly. Suddenly, it wasn't about one woman anymore. It was about them, the nameless, powerful figures supposedly working to bury the truth. Every piece of missing data, every broken link, every copyright claim on a video became evidence of censorship. Candace, watching the storm she'd started, leaned into her role as the outsider. In her next appearance, she didn't mention the clip at all, but she didn't have to. Her audience already knew what she was referring to. She spoke about truth being buried under fear, about narratives built by silence, and her fans filled in the blanks. That episode hit millions of views within 24 hours. At this point, mainstream commentators began warning about the danger of influencer-led investigations, how audiences were confusing entertainment with evidence. But the caution came too late. The public had already chosen sides. On one end were those convinced that Candace was exposing something real. On the other, those who believed she was manipulating her platform for clicks. Yet in both camps, one fact was undeniable: everyone was still watching. And so the story evolved. Some said the woman was part of a larger plot. Others speculated she was a victim herself. A few creators went further, suggesting emotional or financial motives behind the scenes. Each theory contradicted the last, but that didn't matter. The narrative wasn't linear, it was viral. Even Candace's critics couldn't ignore her mastery of the moment. She wasn't shouting, she was letting the internet do it for her. Every unanswered question became content. Every silence became proof of something deeper. By the end of the week, major platforms were flooded with content about episode 246. Compilation videos compared different sightings of the mystery woman, while podcasts debated whether Candace had crossed an ethical line. On Reddit, entire threads were dedicated to identifying background details in blurred screenshots. Some users claimed to have matched the setting to a specific location, though no evidence supported it. The desire for discovery had overtaken the search for truth. One journalist summed it up perfectly in an op-ed: "We're not watching a mystery unfold, we're watching belief become reality in real time." And through it all, Candace remained composed, neither confirming nor denying. Her restraint gave her narrative power. Each passing day, without clarification, turned speculation into conviction. What began as a whisper had now become a digital trial, where evidence didn't matter, only engagement did. The woman in the footage had become an idea, a reflection of what people wanted to believe. Some saw her as a missing piece of a dark puzzle, others saw her as proof of manipulation. But to everyone watching, she was something far more important, the reason they couldn't look away. Days turned into weeks, but the noise didn't fade, it only evolved. What had started as a single sentence in Candace, the internet had done what it always does best: take a fragment of uncertainty and build an empire of theories around it. By the second week, timelines were split between those still searching for the so-called hidden footage and those demanding accountability for spreading misinformation. YouTube panels debated whether Candace Owens had uncovered something real or simply mastered the art of ambiguity. Podcasts titled The Woman in the Shadows appeared daily, re-examining every pause, every look, every unexplained silence in her broadcast. In the middle of all this, Candace herself became a paradox, both the investigator and the story. She didn't confirm, didn't retract, and didn't clarify. She simply let the noise build around her. Each day she stayed quiet, the mystery grew. Every unanswered question became a reason to tune in to her next episode. The audience had changed too. Viewers weren't just watching, they were participating. Social media detectives tracked flight data, CCTV angles, and lighting reflections as if decoding a national secret. Discord servers hosted live debates, comparing timestamps and transcripts. People didn't need evidence anymore, they needed involvement. The investigation had become entertainment. Meanwhile, traditional news outlets found themselves playing catch-up. Major networks released cautious reports, describing the controversy as a case study in viral misinformation. They dissected how a single influencer could shape the news cycle with a single phrase. But ironically, every time mainstream media mentioned Candace's name, her audience grew. The skepticism only amplified her reach. It wasn't just a story now, it was a cultural divide. One side believed Candace was shining light on a suppressed truth. The other saw her as a manipulator of grief and tragedy, but both sides agreed on one uncomfortable reality. She had forced everyone to look, to question, and to react. In the digital era, perception is reality. Once enough people believe something, it doesn't need to be proven, it just needs to feel true. That's the paradox Candace had tapped into. Whether intentional or instinctive, her silence had become her strongest weapon. She didn't need to provide proof. She only needed to suggest that proof existed somewhere hidden, protected, waiting to be uncovered. By the third week, fatigue began to set in. The hashtags slowed. The endless theories began to contradict each other. Some creators deleted their videos after facing backlash or fact-checking. Others doubled down, convinced that the real footage had been scrubbed from the internet. Still, a small but loyal audience refused to let go. To them, episode 246 wasn't just a broadcast, it was a warning, and Candace knew how to play to that loyalty. In one of her later episodes, she addressed the chaos indirectly, her tone calm but deliberate. It's fascinating. She said, how quickly people demand silence when questions get too close to the truth. That line reignited the discussion all over again. Clips of that moment flooded social media. Some said it was proof that she had more to say. Others saw it as pure media strategy, a way to stretch one headline into an entire saga. Yet regardless of intent, it worked. Candace had turned a single unsourced claim into one of the year's most talked about controversies. Behind the scenes, analysts and journalists began treating the entire event as a lesson in modern influence. Think pieces described it as a digital wildfire in the age of narrative control. Researchers at Media Watch groups pointed out how speculation spreads faster than correction, and how emotional storytelling always outperforms fact-based reporting online. The pattern was clear. Outrage is currency, and ambiguity is its most valuable form. As the weeks passed, the story began to fade from mainstream attention but not from memory. It remained a case study, a reminder of how quickly information can spiral once emotion takes over logic. Candace moved on to other topics, but the shadow of episode 246 lingered. For her supporters, it proved she was fearless, unafraid to touch what others wouldn't. For her critics, it became evidence of how easily truth can be distorted in pursuit of influence. In the end, there was no confirmed footage, no verified woman, no conclusive evidence, just a trail of questions and millions of views. But in today's digital world, maybe that is the evidence. The reaction itself becomes the story. The belief becomes the product. Candace Owens didn't need to solve the mystery. She only needed to start it. And that's the power and the danger of narrative in the internet age. A whisper becomes a theory becomes a headline, and a headline becomes a belief. The line between truth and storytelling disappears, replaced by engagement metrics and emotional resonance. As one analyst wrote in the aftermath, Candace didn't just report the story, she became it. Her single sentence reshaped an entire conversation about trust, media, and responsibility. It showed how one person, one platform, and one moment of ambiguity can spark a global conversation not about what happened, but about what people think happened. In the silence that followed, viewers were left with only one question. Was Candace Owens uncovering something real or simply showing us how easily we believe what we want to believe?